Hey everyone, welcome back to more Path of Exile, and today's brand new video is all about an Ignite Armageddon Brand Chieftain, which turned out pretty smooth and you'll see that from the gameplay. Now, the fun part about this build, at least for me, is that I've never built around Ignite. Like, genuinely speaking, I never delve into Ignite DPS, not on the channel and not before I started making content. So this one was an interesting challenge, at least for me. And at the same time, we are using Armageddon Brand, which is a rather unique brand skill, because Runebinder, unlike other brands, is absolutely useless for Armageddon Brand when building for Ignite. It is interesting, but it does make sense since we are not using regular Emberwick to stack another Ignite instance on monsters, so in that sense we are building for fire and fire damage over time multiplier exclusively. The skill tree isn't gonna be as cursed as the past build, and we are also using a couple of cluster jewels. There's more to this character, but we'll get there in a bit, like all build guides that I've posted on the channel. However, there are some bumps in the road as we are kinda building an Ignite character that will share some similarities with a certain meta build involving Discharge and Chieftains. Plus, it's kinda late in Heist, so certain gear pieces are gonna be harder to obtain now. But with all honesty, I do believe that this character in any other league, as long as it's built early on, should not be expensive if at all. Regardless of the entry cost of the character, to prove its worth, I've got Katarina, Elder and Sirus as boss gameplay, alongside some tidbits of mapping and other stuff in between topics. You know, the usual. Anyways, if you are new around here, be sure to subscribe to the channel. A rating and a comment are equally appreciated. And as always, the video is timestamped if you wanna skip or rewatch a specific point. And with all of that said, who would have thought that pyromaniacs do have brand preferences when beginning their arsonist careers? I mean, brands, Ignite, Chieftain, let's go. Alright, so for the skill tree we always begin with the ascendancy, and this is indeed a Chieftain. And we are gonna take fire resistance, totem fire debuff, ignite DPS and fire leech and ash. Pretty simple stuff, right? From there on out, this is a level 94 Chieftain. We are not gonna be working with any bandits, and for pantheons we want Solaris and Shakari. As for the skill tree itself, it is rather easy to understand. We are gonna take some life in the Marauder starting area before rushing towards more life and stun immunity. Also some fire stuff before going towards more life and mana cost of skills. We also want the cluster jewel socket here. From there on out we take some life, elemental damage and some more life. Before taking some additional elemental damage, we also want to take that jewel socket in between. Then we are gonna move towards our stuff, life and some ignite bonuses. We also want the other cluster jewel socket here. Now we are gonna move towards elemental overload, grabbing a dexterity point, moving towards some life and mana regen, also the jewel socket, brand damage, some more life towards even more life, a jewel socket, and we finish off by grabbing fire and ignite stuff. So, for those cluster jewel setups, the first one involves a large cluster jewel that has 8 passives at most, or else we overspend points and we are gonna be forced to overlevel, which I wouldn't really recommend. Anyways, it has Lord of Drought and Burning Bright, 4 flammability bonuses and some fire damage over time multiplier bonuses. Anyways, the medium cluster jewels have 5 passives at most, because again, if we go above that, we overspend points and that is bad for us. The first 2 have Cooked Alive and Blowback. Optimally speaking, if you could get the 3 of them with the same notables as this one, that will give you a crap ton of Ignite DPS, but since I wasn't able to do that, the other medium cluster jewel has Burning Bright and Wasting Affliction. As a summary, all of these notables are for Ignite DPS, so there's not much to say besides that fact. But to wrap up the skill tree, for the regular jewels we want a Watcher's Eye with increased fire damage while affected by anger, but damage with elements or damage over time multiplier while affected by malevolence are also both great and better options than mine, but expensive, so keep that in mind. The rest of the jewels have increased maximum life, fire damage over time multiplier and damage over time. The life and fire DOT multi are mandatory, but the other mods can be up to you and your budget. But yeah, that's it for this portion of the build, so let us move on to the fun stuff. And that means that it's time for the gear, which is the fun part, at least for me, because figuring out what to use and balance it out with the skill tree is always an interesting challenge. So let us begin with the weapon, which is the Searing Touch. And I'd say that it is the backbone of the entire character, as it provides us with fire damage over time multiplier, fire damage, cast speed and fire spell skill gem levels. It's just too good and extremely difficult to beat. and especially if you are building the character using a staff. And at the same time, it is going to host the gem setup, so it's kinda necessary to have it 6 linked. For the body armor, I will recommend an exploded chest. Not like mine though, as the power charges on crit are completely irrelevant, but a exploded chest with life and resistances, just to get rid of enemies that explode on death, is always a good thing to have. Otherwise, Cam's Heart, another rare with more life and resistances, or hell, even one with frenzies on hit are good options as well. For the helmet, a crown of the Inward Eye with an Armageddon Brand enchantment. Why? Because it is really good. But a Warlord influenced helmet with the same enchantment, alongside nearby enemies have negative fire resistance or elemental damage, or both, is gonna be a better option. Up to you though. Moving on, the gloves have fire damage over time multiplier, life and resistances. Nothing fancy here. The boots have life, dexterity, movement speed and ignites to inflict deal damage faster, which is kinda mandatory, so don't skip on it. The amulet has life, fire damage over time multiplier and resist or 2. Also try to get a dexterity base. For anoints, burning brutality for more ignite goodies. The belt is a Stygian bias with life, resistances, and we need to slam a Warlord Exalt to hopefully get either increased fire damage or added fire damage against burning enemies. Mandatory slam. The jewel on the belt has life, damage over time while holding a two-handed weapon, and fire damage to spells. As for the rings, which I kept last, one of them has ignites to inflict deal 10% damage faster as the synthesized implicit, and I crafted this one by spamming Essences of Anger for the guaranteed fire damage mod. I did this until I hit life, resists and an open prefix to craft negative mana cost of skills. I will advise doing the same thing. A ring with that implicit should not be expensive, but gambling essences can get out of hand if the game does not cooperate, so keep that in mind. The other ring is a replica Emberwake, which is gonna greatly increase our ignite DPS, so it is mandatory. However, try to get the highest fire damage and ignite rolls possible to deal even more fire damage. And for flasks, a Cinder Solo Urn, a Sulfur Flask and a Basalt Flask. Finally, to wrap up the build stuff, the gem setups. In the weapon, Armageddon Brand, linked to Awakened Swift Affliction, Awakened Deadly Ailments, Anomalous Inspiration, Awakened Burning Damage, and Awakened Unbound Ailments. In the helmet, Clarity, Anger, and Divergent Malevolence, all of them linked to Enlighten level 3. Level 4 optimally. In the boots, Flame Dash linked to Second Wind and a Lonesome Divergent Vitality at level 1. In the gloves, Wave of Conviction linked to Combustion, Spell, Totem and multiple totems. And in the body armor, Flame Golem and Flame Ability, both of them linked to Blood Magic. So now let us wrap up this character, and to be totally honest, I kinda made an oopsie with the original plan, where I was using a curse on hit ring and the DPS was way lower than it currently sits at. As such, some endgame stuff such as Sirus was a pain in the butt to get through. I wasn't considering the replica Emberwake in the original plan, but eventually decided to commit to it, and the end result is a far more smooth and fun character to play thanks to it. Yes, we are a bit clunky thanks to having to cast Flame ability manually, but it's mostly for single targets, so it doesn't really matter that much. At the same time, this build requires some manual dodging and keyboard pianoing here and there, so it's not particularly a walk in the park. It is okay though, because it is a damage over time build, so it's not really our job delivering DPS continuously. A single tap of the brand does the trick, and our real job is making sure enemies are ignited, so it kinda balances out in the end. Ignite is a weird mechanic to me, because it doesn't require stacking like Blitz or Poison, and I genuinely feel like it's more gear dependent because the skill tree is relatively lackluster in DPS modifiers. However, I feel like this character worked out in the end just fine, which is all that matters, especially seeing as it's the first ever Ignite character in the channel. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but I feel like this entire build could work out relatively nice for a league starter. Of course, without the exploded chest and hoping that replica Emberwake appears next league. But maybe this could work out, somehow. Don't quote me on that though. And just to wrap up this character, I'm also 100% sure that this entire build could have been way cheaper earlier on in the league. Right now it isn't super expensive, but it's also not budget friendly. I'd say between 20 to 25 exiles without the exploded chest is the base currency required to give it a go. So yeah, fun character. For the first ever attempt at Ignite, it seems good, so give it a shot if you can. And with that said, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching today's content, I hope that you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Take care, have a nice weekend, and I'll see you soon with more Path of Exile content, or something like that. Peace out.
Now your hunt is over. To me. Arise, my children. Your hopeless cause will destroy you.
My cause fuels me.
Feed! Assassin, look into my eyes. Goodbye, Ricci. Don't do this, Exile. You can...
What's this? A real challenge? You've finally caught my attention. Die.
This city is nothing!
The others found strength in their projections. They became reliant on them. I am not so foolish. Die. Be silent.
Beyond, there's only horror.
Die.
Why run? What's the point?
Is life really interesting enough to warrant all this pain? Die.
I have seen beyond.
Die.
This city is nothing.
The edge of death, my heart races. I am alive.
This is doomed. Everlasting fire.
You will long for
Non-existence. Die. Be silent. This network is doomed. Everlasting fire.
you will long for
Non-existence. Die. Be silent. This network is doomed. Everlasting fire.
meaning.
Is an illusion.